Hey guys, welcome to the Moment of Clarity, Lessons in Leadership. I'm Dr. Williams, and today we're going to talk about trust issues. All right, guys, let's talk about trust, right? Trust is so foundational to leadership. Listen, nobody wants to follow anyone that they don't trust, right? So you have to always be in a position where you're focused on how each situation will allow the one that's following you or those that's following you to be able to trust you a little more, right? We know that leadership is about relationships. If you want to move the needle, if you want to move your church, your school, your business to the next level, you're going to have to do it through those that follow you. And the only way that you're going to be able to effectively do that is if you have effective relationships. And the only way the relationship is going to be strong is if they trust you and if you trust them, right? And so let's look at the importance of trust and trust issues in leadership. I'm reading a book right now called How Leadership Works. It's co-authored by one of my friends, Dr. Kathy Lassiter, just an amazing person, right? And in this book, the authors talk about building trust, right? They're talking about school leadership, but they're talking about how you can move that needle when you build trust with those that are following you. Listen, nobody can do it alone. I don't care if you're the CEO. I don't care if you're the pastor. I don't care if you're the principal, the superintendent. You cannot do it alone. There are some people that are sent into your life to help you in this season and help progress you to where you're trying to go. You have to have a level of trust with those people if you want to move that needle, right? And so let's talk about 4 things that you need to do if you indeed and in fact plan to build trust and be an effective leader. One thing is respect. Listen, you've got to respect people. You've got to respect people's time. You have to respect people's craft, and you have to respect people's personal lives. Listen, all 3 of those things are important. Listen, when you come in a meeting that was supposed to start at 3 o'clock and the meeting starts at 3:15, and those people have been waiting, they lose a level of respect for you, right? Because your word doesn't mean anything. We'll get to that in a little bit, but it's important to understand that if you want to be a good leader, a great leader, you've got to build respect. People have to respect you. Listen, if you want a lesson in that, visit some of these high schools, right? Visit some of these colleges and talk to the youth, because the youth have mastered respect. What do you mean by that, Doc? These people are not as respectful as they used to be. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is the youth now have a philosophy that if you give respect, you get the respect back, right? And in leadership, it works the same way. We no longer live in an era where people respect you just because you hold a title. We live in an era now that people respect what you do. They respect you when you can show them that you keep your word. They respect you when you can show some competence. And we're going to get to that too, right? But people now want to be respected without giving respect, right? And whereas in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, didn't matter if you had the title of pastor, if you had the title of principal, if you had the title of superintendent, the title of CEO or manager, you gained respect just because of that title. But we don't live in that era anymore. And so if you want to build trust with those that follow you, you've got to figure out how to earn their respect, right? All right, here's the second point. The second point is this. You have to always make sure that you're working on your competence. You got to be competent. Listen, people don't like your ideas sometimes. They may not like how you say something, right? They might not like how you do some things. But you know what they respect? They respect competence. When they know that they can trust you because you're going to get the job done. When you bring something to them, you're going to figure out a way to get it done. You're going to figure out a solution to whatever the problem is that they have. They will respect you. They respect competence. Any great leader that you've ever worked for, you knew they were competent in what they were doing. Whatever it is that they were putting out there, whatever it is they were trying to accomplish, whatever vision or mission that they had, you knew that they were competent. And they did some things along the way to prove to you that they knew what they were doing. Nobody wants to follow anyone that doesn't know what they're doing. And it's obvious when you don't know what you're doing. Listen, the third thing you need to make sure you focus on, if you don't want to have issues of trust with those you follow, is a big one. Personal regard. Man, I see this all the time. This is a problem. This is a problem. Listen, you need to make sure that when someone confides in you, when someone talks to you, when things happen with those that follow you, that you are in a position where you show care and personal regard. Listen, one thing that I do, if I've got someone out and I know they're out because they're sick, I make sure I text them. I make sure I pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Is there anything I can do? That's personal regard. And so often in leadership, we get so high and mighty because of our title that we forget that the people that are following us are human beings. You have to have personal regard. Right? I don't care if you're in that school and you're walking around with your chips and your drink, that's fine. But when a person is in their lowest point, where are you as their leader? Right? When they tell you that they've had something happen in their lives, or they're dealing with something with their child or their animal, their dog, their pet, whatever it might be, when they tell you that in confidence, where is your personal regard? I've had plenty of people tell me all the time, listen, Doc, you're the only person that texts me when I was out sick. Why is that? That's because I try to focus on personal regard. I try to focus on the fact that I'm trying to lead people who have their own lives going on, right? And if I don't show that I actually care about what they care about because they care about it, then they're going to be more apt to not want to respect my leadership. Listen, we don't live in an era anymore where you cannot show personal regard and people will continue to follow you. We don't live in that era. You have to make sure you care about those that follow you, and you have to show them that you care, right? Pay attention to the small things that they say. Have those conversations with them. Personal regard is a big part of building trust as a leader. Listen, and the last one. This one is so powerful, and I kind of hit on it earlier, but I got to hit on it again because it's so key and it's so instrumental to your success. The last one is integrity. Listen, you've got to be a person that keep your word as a leader. Listen, I have mastered this phrase. Listen, I dropped the ball, I owe you one. I've mastered that phrase. Why? Because I drop the ball on something all the time. I just recently I had a teacher that said, hey, I'm down, my instructional assistant is not here, Doc. Can you give me some help around 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock came around, I don't know where I was. I totally forgot it. And at the end of the day, she came to me and she said, you forgot about me. And I said, you know what? I dropped the ball, I owe you one. Right? And she knew that I cared, and she could see on my face that I wasn't upset at myself for dropping the ball per se. I was upset because I let her down, right? And when you do that, when you show that personal regard, when you show that integrity, that you're going to keep your word, and when you mess up, you admit to your mistake, people will respect you. Listen, I try my best to keep my word. If I'm running a meeting and I say this meeting is going to be 10 minutes, when I get up in front of that meeting, those people, I start on time and I tell them, hey, this is going to be 10 minutes unless you got more to say. I respect people's time, right? Am I perfect in any of this? No, I'm not perfect in any of it, but it's important as a leader that you have integrity. It's important that your word can stand on its own. It's important that people understand that if he said it, I can take it to the bank. That's important in leadership. If you want to get rid of the trust issues, if you want to build trust with your team, whether or not that's your leadership team, your immediate team, or whether or not that is everybody that follows you, stakeholders outside of your immediate business that help you, you need to make sure you do those four things and you are focused on those four things: respect, competence, personal regard, and integrity. You have to have it. If you don't have it, you're going to find yourself in a building by yourself, because no one wants to follow someone that they cannot trust. Leave me a comment below. Like, share, and subscribe. And remember, if no one's following you, you're just walking. Until next time.